Okay, today we're going to be putting together the Pop-Up Monolith camp. It's just a couple of tents and this monolith, which as you can see features one of the elder gods and some sort of pulling down of civilizations. And you get some tents here. You can open those up and see what's inside. And they're all pulled up by a string, and so that's going to be a little bit different. Adding some string into the mix, and we're going to show you how to do that right now. So you're going to need a couple of supplies for this. First, you're going to need copies of your Monolith Camp, Pop-Up Monolith Camp PDF printed out and double-sided on at least the first page. And I found that if you feed the page in manually and then manually flip it rather than having your printer print double-sided, you might get better results having everything line up. And then you're also going to need X-Acto knife, maybe some extra blades just in case, a dried out ballpoint pen for scoring or another scoring tool of your choice, rulers good to have, some double-sided tape, and you're going to need some string. I don't know if you can see that. Try to put it right on top of the ruler, but you're going to need probably about 8 inches of string or so, and so have that ready, and we're going to put that to the side, and we're going to use that in just a little bit. But the first thing we're going to do is put together our base. So you'll need your base material as well. Sorry about that, forgot to mention that earlier. You need your base material. I've got some illustration board. You can use binder's board or cardboard, foam core, pretty much anything that's a little bit stiffer than regular paper, and you can make that work. First thing we need to do here is cut out this parts of the base and assemble it into a hexagon. It's pretty simple. We don't need to cut right against the lines except in the places where it's going to overlap, because we're going to be trimming the base anyway. Pay attention to where this base center line is marked, because we're going to be scoring along that and folding the base along that line so that the pop-up is a pop-up, I guess. And because it's going to overlap there, we're going to cut it out on this one, and that's going to overlap there, so we don't need to worry about cutting off that space. And this base piece is going to overlap on 2 sides, so we'll cut that. And this base piece is only going to overlap on this side. There, so. And all that extra white area will be trimmed off once we attach the base to the stiffer backing material we have there. So now I'm using double-sided tape to attach everything. You can use that or glue. I'd recommend, if you're using a glossy paper, to go ahead and use the double-sided tape, just because glue is going to have a little bit more trouble sticking everything together. Go ahead and even these sides up so that looks good. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing on this larger portion of the base, where we attach the 2 sides, 2 halves of this part together. Put that down in the wrong spot. Be careful where you're putting things down. Usually, if you're quick about it, you can pull the double-sided tape off if you stuck it in the wrong spot and reposition it real fast. But sometimes you'll end up ripping your paper and you'll have to print out a new piece, which would suck. So don't do that. Try to get it in the right spot, I guess. But if it is in the wrong spot, move it. Alright, so now we tape these two parts together to form the whole hexagon. You can kind of line up the textures in the grass, kind of look for places that match, and then make sure that this spot lines up pretty good. And attach that. We're going to need to score along this center line. So just get a flat edge and put a line along there with your dried out ballpoint pen, and that's going to make it so it folds right there, right down the middle where we want it to fold. Once we've got this folded in half, we're going to put tape all the way around the edge. If you were gluing, I would recommend gluing all the way around the edge for sure, paying special attention to the edge. So, tape all the way around the edge. And on this setting, this is definitely going to use up most of your tape. Like, the most tape is going to be going into just attaching this thing to the edge. So, if you happen to have some like spray adhesive or something, might be faster, and you wouldn't have to worry about using up so much tape. So here we go. Almost done with taping this part up. And I've found using a 60 or 80 pound cardstock is best for printing on. Cardstock, or some call it cover stock. When I had these printed at Staples, I think I got told them like gloss cover, and they knew what to print it on from that. So we're going to want to attach each piece of our thicker material to a side. So what I like to do is to make sure that there's a gap in the middle, put a piece down, another piece on top of it, and then I attach it like that. And then that ensures that there's a little bit of space in between the two sides, which helps with the pop-up opening more easily and laying flat. If you haven't left that space. Alright, so I've attached one side over here, and I've attached the other side of the base. Again, we're leaving a small gap in the middle just to make sure that there is space and the two parts of the base material don't push against each other when you try to open it. And that usually, it's not a huge problem, but it means that you're going to have to get your pop-up out a little bit ahead of when you plan on using it for games, so that it lays flat by the time your gaming session starts. But if you leave a gap in between the two parts, just a little gap, then those sides of the base will pull the pop-up flat, and you won't have to worry about that. So now we're going to trim off this extra base material. I like to trim off the sides with this long arm paper cutter, but really, scissors or whatever will cut the backing material that you've used will be fine for that. And just want to cut those edges off so it forms a nice hexagon. We'll see, I'm trying to cut pretty close to the edge of the backing material there. Alright, so once you have your hexagon, you're ready to attach your parts to it. And the main part here to look at is part number 1. But before we cut anything out, we're gonna score the piece, which means we're drawing a line with our pen from each blue triangle to the corresponding blue triangle on the other side of that line. Now sometimes there'll be a piece that just says score to the cut. That just means you're going to score over till you hit the cut. You're not going to keep scoring where there's no line. And basically every long straight line on this part will need to be scored. So if you see a line that looks like it's hand drawn, don't score that. If you see a line that looks like it's been created in digital format, score that. Okay, that's basically the rule of thumb on this one. Is that all of these straight lines need to be a fold line. Because that's where there are gonna be some folds, you know? So I think I got all of them. Not a big deal. If I miss some, I can go back. So pay special attention to these little cuts here. They need to be cut if this is gonna work. So slice out those guys. And then we're gonna cut all the way around part number 1. And that's gonna help us make the monolith for this camp, for this monolith camp, you know. So I don't know about you guys, but I love me some Lovecraft, okay? HP. You know, could mean Harry Potter, but it doesn't. It means H.P. Lovecraft. Now, Lovecraft was an author, for those of you who don't know, who was living and working at around the same time as Tolkien, and his books and short stories are pretty dang cool, and they're sort of the thing behind the whole Cthulhu mythos. It's kind of a fun idea, you know. Ancient sleeping abominations just waiting and possibly plotting to unleash their horrors upon the earth. And in fact, they're like extra dimensional. Pretty sweet too. Okay, so don't forget to cut out this little hole, okay? This hole is essential because it's going to mean that your string can get out. Alright? So before we finish attaching part 1, we're going to do part 4. Okay? I know it's labeled part 4, but you got to do it now. Okay? And I forgot to score part 4. I'm just going to do that real quick. And I'm going to score these other parts before I forget about them too. Parts 2 and parts 3. So part 4 is where the string comes in. Okay? What we're going to need to do is wrap the middle of our string once around part 4. Wrap. And I've got about, let's see how many inches. I've got about 18 inches of string. You're going to need way less than that, but it's nice to have extra. I don't know. Makes it easier to work with, easier to see what you're doing. So what I'm going to do is get part 4 with some adhesive on it, ready to be attached to itself, either glue or tape. Again, I'm using tape because this way nothing needs dry time. I can show you right away what needs to happen. And also because I printed on glossy paper. So, I used to said it was glossy paper. I think it might have been semi-gloss that I got. Anyway, let's wrap the middle of the string once around this piece. So it's coming out each side. And then we'll fold part 4 over where it says to attach part 4 to part 4. We'll get this little tab on the end, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put both ends of part 4 through this hole in part 1. From the inside to the outside, okay? From the back to the front before we glue part 1 together. And if you forget to do this, it is possible to just glue part 4 to the outside. That's fine. But I think from the inside it makes it look a little cooler, so I mean, if you haven't done it on the inside and you get to part 4 and you're like, oh crap, just go ahead and like glue it to the outside where the hole is. You're fine. It's not a big deal. So now I'm going to attach part 4 to part 1 here. And I've got my strings coming out the front. And now I'm okay to go ahead and attach part 1 to itself so that it forms a sort of 3D shape, you know, monolith. So monolith is the term for one of these, right? What's the term if you have 2 of them? Right? Is it a bilith? No one ever talks about biliths, you know, or triliths. It's always monoliths. So, you know, there's a lot of room, you know. I mean, the monolith, obviously that's been invented, but the bilith? Huh? It sounds almost like a speech disorder though, so. Anyway, let's go ahead and get these pieces into place. So it's going to look like that when it's flat, and it's going to look like that when it's up. So let's glue it to the base so it stays in its shape, and then we're going to build these tents where, I don't know about you guys, but there's always the random encounter at night. Your group's camping and suddenly, you know, they're being attacked by like a herd of hippogriffs or something. So that's kind of what this camp setting is for. Just to make sure that when your group gets attacked by hippogriffs, there's some tents to be trampled on by hippogriffs. Okay, so we attach one to be 1 on this side, one to be 2 on this side, one to be 1 on this side, and you can see that little crystal is going to match up over there, and your string is going to be hanging out towards the camping area over here. Okay. So now let's do part 2. Part 2 is going to form the side of one tent. Let's put that together, glue it down. This way your adventurers can head out into the, you know, the wilderness, get away from it all a little bit. I'm sure they're tired of the city life, all the hustle and bustle of the city, all the magical cell phones and whatnot. And they come across this little clearing with these crystals and this monolith. to start to think, this is a good camping spot, you know? And they sleep peacefully until the whispering starts. It's always whispering around these sorts of arcane artifacts and strange dreams of non-Euclidean geometries and such. So, non-Euclidean is a term that Lovecraft uses a lot to describe the buildings seen in relation to Cthulhu there in Rylea, and if you ask me, Euclidean almost sounds more threatening than non-Euclidean, right? I mean, I know that like the basis is like Euclid, the philosopher, but like Euclidean sounds kind of like, oh crap, that's some Euclidean stuff going on right there. But all Euclidean means is like just normal geometry. It just means normal. So non-Euclidean just means like it's not normal. Alright, so we've got our two parts of the tent that are going to be attached to the ground. Next, we're going to want to cut out tab 1 and tab 2. And we're going to slot those on to parts 2 and 3, respectively. And then what we're going to do is attach T1 and T2, these sort of boards that are going to hold tab 1 and tab 2 in place, and turn them into what I call gravity flaps. Flaps where gravity does the work of this pop-up. And we'll just cut out tab 2 while we're doing that. We'll attach tab 2 over here to part 3, and then we'll attach T1 and T2. Now, I don't know if it's not going to make much of a difference which one goes where. They're basically the same thing. So let's get some adhesive in place for those. And this is T2 to 3, so this is going to go over on the red tent. And we're just going to tuck that right in there. Boom, bam. So a little tent. And then we're going to do the same thing for T1 to 2. Kind of did those in reverse order. But again, they're not really parts that affect each other, so that doesn't matter much. Okay, and so that's just going to do the same thing, kind of slide up right there, match up with the ends, and attach. Alright, so we've got our tents, we've got our monolith. But the problem is, once we fold everything down, those tents are going to stay flat. And that's where our strings come in. Your adventurers have tied this rope around the monolith in order to hold up their tents. And this is going to form the same function when it pops up these these two tents. So we've got these parts, part 6 and part 5 and part 6, and their purpose is to hold the tent up, pull the string taut. When the string pulls taut, it'll pull the tent, and it'll make sure it's standing up. So similar process to that we did on part number 4. We're going to wrap the string. We're gonna match this up, okay? So the distance, we're gonna stand this up so that this part matches up with this line on the base, and that's how tall we want the tent to be. Then we're gonna pull the string right till it hits that corner right underneath the support part, and that's at that point in the string is where we want to wrap it around part number 5 and secure part number 5 in place, okay, to itself. Then we're going to put more adhesive on the other side of part number 5, and we're going to attach part number 5 up under the inside of part number 2, okay, so that this goes right here, okay, part number 5 to part number 2. And what that's going to do is make sure that this tent stands up nice and tall as needed, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing with part number 6 to part number 3, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is put a little adhesive here, and we might as well put adhesive over here now while we're doing it. We'll take off the cover. And now we pull this string over, we line it, we stand up the tent so that this line is up against the base where that thing's going to be standing. We pull that over and get our adhesive ready on part number 6 so that that goes right right there in the same spot. We wrap it around and attach 6 to 6, and then cut off the extra string. We get our adhesive ready to attach part number 6 to part number 3. We open it up and we attach part number 6 to part number 3, and now our tents will stand up because of the string that pulls them up. So it'll fold flat, and when it comes up, that string is going to pull those tents up so that they look like tents rather than just flattened tents. Okay, so that is the standing stone camp, and thanks for watching. You can find these at stonehavenmini.com.